So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about rulings. And specifically, we're talking about specific situations where it's not super easy or super clear on what will happen in these given scenarios. And today we're going to go over some. So, we'll start with the easiest one. And honestly, I don't even know the answer to all of these different ruling things. So, but we'll start off with what I think will be one of the easier ones. So, we're going to assume that uh, you have normal summoned or special summoned 5 times, allowing for a Nibiru to be activatable. So, if you have a token and we go chain 1 Nibiru, chain 2 token collector, how does this chain resolve? Well, this is probably the only one I remember the answer to. So with token collector, there's actually something kind of funky about token collector. So if we actually summon token collector here before the 5th summon, so if token collector were the 5th summon or before, token collector prevents tokens from being special summoned. And because of that, this actually prevents Nibiru from being summoned because it is mandatory to summon the token. But of course, Nibiru actually would tribute the entire field first. So in which case, if we did like chain 1 Nibiru, chain 2 token collector, Nibiru would try to resolve as much as possible and would end up tributing the token collector and then summoning the token. So if they're chained like this, right? So chain 1, chain 2. Token collector doesn't stop Nibiru at all. But if we went in reverse here and we had token collector on the field first, Nibiru would never be activatable as long as the token collector is on the field. And one way you could kind of utilize this as a combo is if you were to use token collector plus Lost World, which is kind of neat, I guess. And this also happens to just beat Sword Soul. So technically this was a good tech for at that point with Dino. So you would like activate Lost World, normal summon a dinosaur monster, and then activate the effect of token collector to try to pop the token. And then, well, yeah, destroy as many tokens as possible. But then you protect it with Lost World, which allows you to pop a dinosaur. So in this case, it would be popping the baby, and then you would special summon Soul Eating Oviraptor or something like that, and then you have combo. So that's the general idea with that. So yeah, that was the simplest one we're going for today. So next, we have Time Thief Redoer. So we're just going to go over a little bit of stuff with Time Thief Redoer. So Time Thief Redoer. This will be the scenario I'm asking about, and I genuinely do not remember how this works. Okay, so let's assume we control a Time Thief Redoer, and then we want to activate Time Thief Redoer's effect to banish itself. So we're going to then actually Book of Moon Time Thief Redoer. So we're going to go chain 1, and we're going to attempt to activate this effect here, banish this card until the end phase. And then either ourselves or our opponent, someone is going to activate a Book of Moon effect, and that's going to book the Redoer as chain link 2. So what happens here? Well, I can tell you a few details of what happens here. So firstly, Redoer can detach even despite being face down, and this applies to any XYZ monster, really. So some detach for cost, some detach for effect. I don't even remember if this works in the same way with Gigantic. I mean, we can real quick check what Gigantic says. Because Gigantic, I believe, can detach from any XYZ on the field, including your opponents, maybe? No, it's just from a monster you control. Does it care if Gigantic Sprite is face down? So if we went chain 1 Gigantic and then flipped it face down, can you actually detach and identify Gigantic Sprite as an XYZ? Because this is kind of different from Redoer, in the sense that Redoer detaches from itself, which can be kind of identified. I don't know if Gigantic Sprite be identified or not. And this is just a ruling I wasn't even thinking of. It just came up. Yu-Gi-Oh is a pretty simple game then, huh? But alright. So the thing about the redoer is I know that redoer can banish itself when it's booked. And also, interestingly enough, redoer uh, gets returned to your field, and it is not special summoned. So that's an interesting little thing. So for example, if we had a cross sheep, redoer returning would not trigger that. It would not re-trigger a Bardiche either, for example. But the thing here that I'm really going to be confused about, and I genuinely don't remember, when you banish redoer in this case, is redoer banished face up or face down? Because you flipped redoer face down, and when it does return to the field, it will return as face down when it is returned to the field here. And also, while we're at it, if you were to use, well, I don't think there is a card that does this as of currently, but if we had some sort of XYZ material that gave redoer an effect, like our good friend, let's see, where's the Astral Kribo? Right here. Astral Kribo has the effect to give your card an effect, and it's specifically only when the card was summoned using this card on the field as material. If we have Astral Kribo, well, this is a different situation, but if we have Astral Kribo and we make a numbers monster with it, I suppose, so it would gain this effect, cannot be destroyed by battle or your opponent's card effects. If we were then to banish that card with like an SP, does it still remember and get this effect? If I recall correctly, the answer is yes, it should technically retain the effect to be able to be indestructible by battle or card effect. Maybe. But this will end up being detached as well, which makes this even more confusing when your XYZ monster is banished. But if you were to detach Astral Kribo anyways, you would still have the effect, so that's neat, I suppose. But yeah, genuinely don't remember if Time Thief Redoer, when it banishes itself while it's face down, if the card will be face down while it's banished or face up. Does this necessarily really matter or impact the game at all? I don't think it does, but I genuinely cannot remember how this works. Just, yeah. And then I guess we'll go with another kind of easier one. So if we have, let's see. If we have, what was the card called again? If we have Rivalry of the Warlords, and it says each player can only control one type. Well, actually, no, wait, this isn't the right card, actually. No, alright. I got it now. So we have Clashing Souls. So Clashing Souls has quite an interesting effect. So during damage calculation, if your attack position monster battles an opponent's attack position monster with higher attack, the controller of the battling monster with lower attack can pay 500 life points for that monster to gain 500 attack during damage calculation. Only then keep repeating this effect until a player chooses not to pay life points. Neither player takes any battle damage from that battle. Also, after damage calculation, if any player's monsters would be destroyed by that battle, send all cards that player controls to the graveyard instead. So with Clashing Souls, the only thing we're going to super focus on is this effect here. If any player's monster would be destroyed by that battle, send all cards that player controls to the graveyard instead. So if we are able to trigger this effect, so let's assume our opponent's field. It's going to consist of, we'll assume, in this case, I think it would be maybe something like, I don't know, let's go with Blackwing Full Armor Master. So we'll grab this real quick. And then, I don't know, maybe we have Vata in attack position. So we're going to assume, for whatever reason, you know, the Blackwing player in this case, they will have less life than you, so they will always lose in the Clashing Souls. Does Clashing Souls actually send Blackwing Full Armor Master? With this effect here, it says send all cards that player controls to the graveyard instead. So I'm not 100% sure how this works, but my assumption is going to be that this will not in fact be able to send a Towers monster. And the reasoning behind this is that it says neither player takes any battle damage from that battle, and then after the damage calculation, if any player's monster would be destroyed by that battle, send all cards that player controls to the graveyard instead. And this is just all as an effect. And with towers, there are similar cards that out towers monsters. So if we look at evenly matched specifically, and there are a few other similar-ish cards, it specifically says if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can make your opponent banish cards from their field face down so they control the same number of cards as you do. So the important distinction about these two effects is that, well, it's your opponent choosing the cards that are banished, so they're able to technically choose the full armor master. And why you're able to choose the full armor master for evenly matched, I have no freaking clue, because with full armor master, it's technically unaffected, right? So why is it able to be banished by a card effect, and you're not forced to keep your towers monster? Genuinely, no idea behind the reasoning of this ruling, but yeah, I didn't really know the answer to this one, but I'm pretty sure what I said is correct. So yeah, that's probably how that works. And then I guess one more for the trip, or one more for the road, I suppose. Okay, so now we're going to have, very simply, let's see, what's a fun one? Oh, I got it. So let's say we have Azumina cards. So we have the Hallowed Azumina, and we also have Deception of the Sinful Spoils. So if you're under Macrocosmos, how does this resolve? So let's assume Macrocosmos is face up, and you activate Hallowed Azumina's effect here. It says, reveal one Azumina fusion monster in your extra deck, and for every 4 levels it has, round down, send one Sinful Spoils card from your hand and or field to the graveyard. If face down, reveal it, then special summon that revealed monster. This is treated as a fusion summon. Well, this one is pretty simple. So this has to happen. So A has to happen for B to happen. So A in this case would be send a Sinful Spoils card from your hand and or field to the graveyard. It specifically mentions that it has to go to the graveyard, and it is not simply just discarded. So if it gets banished instead, you would not special summon a you would not special summon your fusion monster. So I think there are a few more I could go through. I think I've kind of gone through them in the past, so I don't know if it's like super worthwhile getting into all these now. But yeah, why not? Well, let's go over it. So if we have a Baron, so well, let's assume, yeah, we have a Baron to floor, right? And your opponent applies a Book of Moon onto your Baron, right? So your Baron is now going to be face down, okay? So you can't flip over Baron this turn, so you do your turn and then you pass back priority. So then your opponent After this, they will set one card and pass, and this card happens to be Solemn Judgment. So next turn, of course, the first thing you'll probably end up doing is then, in this case, flipping over the Baron to floor to, you know, be able to activate your Baron effect again. But your opponent here is actually able to Solemn Judgment Baron, because this actually counts as a flip summon. So, alright, Baron is now destroyed and is sent to the graveyard. So, nothing weird yet, but alright. Here's the big question now. You have Monster Reborn in hand, actually. So, can you actually Monster Reborn this Baron in the graveyard? So, keeping in mind that extra deck monsters, sometimes they have conditions that prevent them from being special summoned aside from being properly summoned. Like, the card might say this card must be synchro summoned, and it also might have specific requirements. So, in this case, Baron doesn't have that. But if a card is not properly summoned to begin with, then you would not be able to special summon it from the graveyard. So one good example with this would be the Shiranui cards, where you have this graveyard, all these graveyard effects, where you can banish cards from your graveyard. So I believe it is specifically, is it this card? Target to special summon. No, it's not this one. It was this one. So banish both it and this card, special summon a zombie synchro monster for your extra deck whose level equals the total levels those two monsters had. So this doesn't say it counts as a synchro summon, it says it's a special summon. So if you were to out that monster, like in this case it could be like a Sun Saga, then that Sun Saga would not be special summonable, whether it is banished or in the graveyard. You would have to fully recycle it back into the extra deck and then try to summon it again, whether it be by the Spectral Sword effect or by properly summoning it. So with Baron in this case, Solemn Judgment, technically, if you were to Solemn a card, it goes into the graveyard without being properly summoned. So this is different from if we were to hit Baron with like a Raigeki. A little bit, right? So I can tell you the definitive answer if we were to just straight up Solemn Judgment a monster, right? So if we had, for example, I guess we'll go with Unchained Soul of Rage. So assume you're playing Yubel and you're playing Unchained Soul of Rage for whatever reason, or maybe Unchained Soul of Anguish. If I were to Solemn Judgment this, you can't bring it back with Yama effect to Monster Reborn, nor could you activate Muckraker's effect to reborn this. So that's just kind of how that works. So now the question is, since Baron was actually properly summoned earlier, but then you attempted to flip summon Baron, can you actually special summon Baron or not? Because I genuinely do not know the answer to this ruling. So yeah, I don't have the answer to this one. So yeah, not really certain about this one. So that's all I've got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Well, yeah, I don't know if Baron is properly summoned or not considered properly summoned after being hit by Solemn in this case. So yeah, bye.